Cell service isn't great at the island, but once you can use your phone, but stuff might not just send, and it's not great.
Is everybody saying you can't make calls and you can't take pictures because there's no reception? He's out in the middle of the water at those coordinates and he's got reception. He is talking about the boat taking on water. We are sinking. Come and get us. I want this boat unsank and towed back. But interesting, we learn that very boat took multiple trips later that very same night.
That call went out on July 4th. Minutes later, Nolan Wells was gone. It's been over a month since, no autopsy result, no cause of death, no arrests. And this past week, evidence that Nolan's so-called friends have been lying to all of us from the very beginning just surfaced.
Original dock. It arrives at Horn Island at 11:14. So at around 4 o'clock, there is a call to the Coast Guard about the boat. NBC News got a hold of it.
We're sinking. Can you all please come?
And is everybody on board in good health otherwise?
Yeah, everybody's on board.
Everybody's on board. So does that mean Nolan is on there? Who was on that boat? At 4:31, the boat leaves Horn Island and it is towed approximately 3 miles, and then the tow ends. So after 3 miles, they go back to the original dock, okay? They arrive at 5:44 p.m. So it looks like this is where Horn Island is, and this is where the original dock is that I am referring to. I looked it up, and El Camino Real Road is in Gulf Hills, Mississippi, which is right above Ocean Springs. So I'm wondering if this is the house where they got the phone. Now, the boat travels to Fort Bayou. At 6:06, the boat returns to the original dock. Then, from the original dock, the boat goes back to Fort Bayou, and then they go to the boat launch, and it is put onto the trailer and moved by the vehicle. Did they drop people off at the original dock, travel to Fort Bayou, pick somebody up, and go back to that original dock? And then, from there, why was there an hour and 13-minute time gap? This boat was sinking hours before, and then they're just having it docked for an hour and 13 minutes. You would think they'd want to get that boat out of the water ASAP.
Here's what investigators were initially told. According to a Department of Marine Resources Marine Patrol report, several friends who had traveled out to the island with Nolan told deputies that when they left, he was, in their words, in the company of an unknown female, and that he had chosen to stay behind. That's the account that's been out there publicly for over a month now, and it hasn't sat right with everyone who actually knew him.
Get ready to leave out of there, getting towed out.
Yeah.
And then where's Nolan in this situation?
Well, Nolan was, the last time I saw Nolan was 3 o'clock. And Nolan was cradling a girl in his arms, Katie, Katie. And Katie, Nolan was sitting there, and the last time I saw him, I looked at Nolan, and Nolan was like shaking his head, laughing, and I was like, dude, you crazy. I was like just joking with him. And, but anyway, Nolan, that was the last time I laid eyes on him. But when we were leaving, obviously, no one is getting left at the island that came with us unless they demanded to, be there and asked, this is a very common thing at Horn Island. When you're out there, a lot of people ride out there with someone and in with somebody else all the time. I've done that 100 times. It's a very common thing, but Nolan was sitting by the boat with that Katie girl, and my buddy yelled for Nolan, get on the boat. We're leaving. The boat's having issues. And no, he didn't say that, but he was panicking. Nolan, get the F on the boat. Get on the boat. And Nolan said, no, I'm staying out here. I'm gonna ride in with somebody else. And it's not uncommon to hear, but it's not like my buddy asked him one time. My buddy asked Nolan multiple times to get on the boat. Nolan, get on the boat, get on the boat, we're leaving. If you're coming, you gotta come now. And Nolan made a decision to stay out on the island. And like he said,
How many people heard that? Where there's just,
at least
just a
5
few, or?
to, I mean, everyone that was on our boat right there, because the Palm Beach had already left. My buddy went ahead and went home on the Palm Beach, and 3 guys on the way back. And Nolan wasn't the only person to ride out there with us and in with somebody else. I mean, we had multiple people in our group that rode out with us and rode in on someone else's boat. And that, like I said, that's not an uncommon thing to do, you know? I mean, a lot of people do that. I could name probably 50 people out there that day that ran out with somebody and ran back in with somebody else. So, I mean, it's not like it's an uncommon thing, but it's not like we just left him there, or my friends just left him there. Nolan made a decision to stay on the island after my friends asked him multiple times and told him to get on the boat, and he decided to stay.
And I heard the girl that he was with, Katie, had text somebody that she heard people yelling
Correct.
for Nolan to get on it. Is
Yeah,
that true?
And I have a picture of that. She texted my buddy, and the next day everybody was panicking and everybody's texting Katie, you know, because she was obviously seen with Nolan the whole day at the island. Katie sent a message to my buddy the next day and said, you know, this is the last time I saw him, you know, he's really sweet. But she also mentioned that the last time she saw Nolan was when my buddy was yelling at him to get on the boat. And she was right there to see that Nolan decided not to.
Yeah, so you guys get in the boat, you start to get towed in, and you make it back. Now explain how...
That's Javon Williams, a friend of Nolan's who was also on the island that day. He's one of several voices publicly pushing back on the idea that this was simply someone choosing, on his own, to stay behind. Investigators initially said there was no evidence of foul play and that drowning was the suspected cause. But as of the most recent reporting, there's still no official determination on manner of death, and the district attorney's office has ordered the state autopsy results sealed, kept from the public, until they're formally presented to a grand jury. Right now, in this exact moment, nobody outside investigators and that grand jury actually knows what the autopsy found. That's the fact, doing most of the work in keeping this story alive. Not a theory, not a leak. A document that exists, that someone has already read, and that the public is being kept from, by design, through the legal process, until a grand jury sees it first. Here's what's actually driving the questioning everything feeling online right now. It's not one smoking gun. It's the accumulation of small things that don't quite line up. The account of Nolan choosing to stay versus a friend who says that's completely out of character for him. A timeline that investigators still haven't fully reconciled with the location data that's come out since. A sealed autopsy that's been sealed for weeks longer than most people expected. None of that proves anything on its own. But stacked together, it's why so many people watching this case aren't satisfied with the official version yet. And honestly, neither is Nolan's own family.
Lies that are based in truth. I figured it all out and I've got proof. But stick with me because it's going to be a long video, y'all. Now, I found a 15-page Marine Patrol report that had lots of little details that prove that the boys had been lying. So I've already shown how at 1:30 in the morning, the initial Lieutenant Odom with the Jackson County Sheriff's Office said that his deputies spoke with several of the friends who traveled to the island on the vessel with Nolan. And they said that he left in the company of an unknown female and that he chose to remain on the island.
So what was the next step? Did you guys ever engage with police or? Yeah, so the first time I talked to the police was July 7th. I talked to the lead investigator and I told him my whole story top to bottom. Dot every I, crossed every T. I told him everything I knew, every little detail.
Well, that's a lie now, isn't it, Warren? Because you talked to them at 1:30 in the morning that night. I mean, did you just forget to tell the cops about Katie? Because it's not like you didn't know it was her or you didn't know how to get in contact with her.
The girl that he was with, Katie, had texted somebody that she heard people yelling. Correct. Nolan yelling. Yeah, and I have a picture of that. She texted my buddy, and the next day everybody was panicking. Everybody's texting Katie, because she was obviously seen with Nolan the whole day at the island. Katie sent a message to my buddy the next day and said, this is the last time I saw him. He's really sweet. But she also mentioned that the last time she saw Nolan was when my buddy was yelling at him to get on the boat.
But Katie says that she assumed that she went on the boat after y'all were yelling at him. And let's not forget that the last time you saw him was 3.
Well, the last time I saw Nolan was 3 o'clock. And Nolan was cradling a girl in his arms.
And yet for some reason around noon, the name of another girl who hadn't even seen Nolan in a year was given to the patrol to go interview, saying that she was with that group, not Katie. They also gave the name of a couple of other friends who they weren't able to get in contact with. And despite having a picture of a text message from Katie, funny how you didn't share that with Officer Tatum. Probably could have cleared up some stuff real quick, right? Now let's get to the data. Now, at about 1:30 on July 5th, they were doing a flight of drones based on the relation of the last known anchor position of the Atkinson vessel, which I have documented right here. 4:30, Officer Strickland contacted Jennifer Pyrone, who was Wyatt's mother, who told them that he had already spoken to officers earlier in that day, but they were happy to cooperate with any investigation. And she let this officer take a picture of the GPS. Officer Strickland observed the track line showing Pyrone's vessel location on Horn Island, then gave coordinates. I'm gonna need you to remember this exact phrasing. It's gonna be important later on. Now, this was the GPS coordinates from the picture that the officer took, meaning that these coordinates had to be a different one that was verbally given over the phone by Wyatt. And you'll notice they're quite different. Now you'll notice that this incident report says the involved entities are Bart Edmington and Jerry Adkerson, not Wyatt. Even though Wyatt is 18, he should be on this report. And you could argue that they were just giving the names of the people that owned the boats, but somehow I doubt that 21-year-old Bart owns that boat. You'll notice on this report that 2 different pieces of GPS evidence were collected. So now we're gonna go to the July 8th report where they came and they took those GPS coordinates from both the Adkerson boat and Bart's boat. Yellow is Bart, blue is the grandfather Jerry. You know, the same Jerry that called and canceled the sea tow as the sea tow phone call was being made. Now, mind you, this is 3 days after the police had come and spoken to the mother and gotten the GPS coordinates. Now, Bart had a germane GPS map chart plotter. Jerry's boat also contained a germane GPS map chart plotter. Now, I had to look up the difference between waypoints, tracks, and routes. So waypoints mark specific spots, routes connect them in a planned order, and tracks record your actual path. Now, according to that GPS data, there is no movement from 11 to 4:30, but we know that that's not true. Warren has never been able to logically explain how they ended up so far away from the shore. Because according to him, he said at 3 o'clock, that was the last time he saw Nolan, Bart was trying to yell at him to get on the boat. His brother got into a fight, so he got his brother to come over there. That's when he saw that it was all sinking, because he said this.
There's a lot of people on, so it drags water in, and eventually, I think over time we were out there for a couple hours. The boat just started filling up with water, so I popped the starboard side hatch, and the battery was completely underwater.
Yes, but according to Warren, he had just seen Nolan like neck deep cradling a girl at the boat next to them. So how did they end up in 31 feet of water at the 4 o'clock call? There's an hour in between that. If the battery is submerged, how would they even get away from the sandbar? You can see in the background of this picture, they are far away from people. And yet this GPS is saying that you were stationary the whole time. But why? Especially because we have actual fucking proof right here. We have the coordinates that Wyatt's mom gave them the second time, and the cop took a picture of the GPS. Compare it to the GPS coordinates in which they were trying to get a tow from. But what if I were to tell you that not only does a waypoint need to be physically saved on this exact type of GPS, you have to intentionally say, mark this spot, or else it doesn't automatically save. It records your tracks automatically, but those are just saved coordinates. And it turns out you can actually delete tracks. It's super easy. You just go into the main menu and you delete it off of your data. So why is this GPS data, which is right here, so much further away than what the GPS says it is later? There's no data included in that GPS report that explains them going from here to here, unless someone went in and deleted those tracks. Because they probably dropped that waypoint once they anchored, which would explain why Warren said they showed up at 10:30 and the GPS says that they showed up after 11. And so then it wasn't until half an hour after the canceled tow that they dropped another waypoint. And mind you, the exact same GPS was used in both boats, and Wyatt/Jerry's boat has the tracks and routes where Bart's does not. And again, it tracks it automatically, so you have to intentionally delete those tracks. And why did they do that? Well, it turns out Jerry Atkinson just so happens to be the owner of Ocean Marine Group in Ocean Springs and Gulfport, which is literally a boat dealer. So guess who's gonna know that information? We already know Grandpa Jerry was in the mix because the only way that he could have canceled the sea tow before it even started to head out is if Wyatt had called Jerry first and Jerry told him to call for a sea tow and then canceled it for him, which would explain why he couldn't give any descriptions of where the water was, how high was it. We know that the sea tow did not bring in the boat. In fact, Bart's mother came on Facebook and said that there are pictures from my son's boat of the boat about to be towed, which is clearly who is about ready to tow them here as Wyatt is on the phone. I can tell you 100% that this is not a sinking boat. You can see Bart bringing them in this picture. But Bart was supposedly the one yelling at Nolan to get on the boat, remember? Why would he be yelling at Nolan to get on a boat that's sinking? Unless he was telling Nolan to get on his boat. And Warren accidentally explained what really happened with the engine. Whatever happened with Nolan happened on Bart's boat, allegedly, which is why all of Bart's information was deleted. So here's what happened. Both this one and this one confirmed that there was a fight that broke out on the beach. Started out with him, ended up with Warren's little brother. His uncle says, we gotta go. They hop on a boat and they leave. He grabs his drunk younger brother and says, we're getting out of here too. 3 o'clock, this whole caravan is trying to get the hell out of there because they're drunk and fighting. Wyatt's boat was in such a hurry that they couldn't figure out how to put the freaking trim down, which caused the motor to overheat, quickly stranded them, and Bart had to come help them. The time that Bart shows up, something has happened between him and Nolan. They're all distracted trying to fix the bilge pump because it didn't trim down, the waves were crashing over the boat and into the bilge pump, short-circuiting it. During this, some people have figured out that Nolan is gone. Other people just think that he's passed out or something, which is why Wyatt calls his grandfather to figure out what the F to do. And as the phone call is being made, more people are figuring out something's wrong with Nolan. That's why they didn't start moving again for 30 minutes. They were coming up with a plan and figuring out how to make it work. We've run out of time, but don't worry, I'm doing a follow-up to this video with more details, more information. And if you like my work, be sure to show your support in my bio.
This is exactly the kind of case where the comment section fills up with theories faster than actual facts come out. If you want the version of this story that sticks to what's documented, hit subscribe now. Nobody has publicly reconciled the friend's account of that day with the location and timeline data that's since surfaced through public records and reporting. There are real gaps between when people say things happened and when the data says things happened, and nobody in an official capacity has walked the public through those gaps yet. Nolan's mother, Christine Wansley, has repeatedly and publicly asked anyone who was on Horn Island that day, anyone with photos, anyone with video, anyone with anything, to come forward, either to law enforcement or to her legal team.
Honestly, we are doing this because at the end of the day, I would hope any parent would fight for their kids to find out if anything happened, what did happen. So we just want honesty and transparency. We want a thorough investigation. We want that same respect that would be given to anybody else, and that's it. We just want answers.
Well, we really appreciate. That's the loudest, clearest thing coming from this family right now. Not accusations pointed at specific named individuals. A request. Send us what you have. Help us understand what happened to our son. A family is now well over a month into this, without a cause of death, without an arrest, without that sealed autopsy being unsealed. That is an extraordinarily long time to sit in public limbo, watching strangers online build entire theories about the last hours of your child's life. At a press conference back in July, Nolan's parents didn't talk about timelines or documents. They talked about their son.
And I want you to please continue to tell us what you want the world to know about your son.
So Nolan was just like this bright light, right? Walk into a room, his smile, his energy was just so infectious. Like it's almost like he drew you into him. And he was just one of those people, like he always wanted everyone to be included. He didn't want anyone to feel left out. I remember one of his teachers emailing us. I can't remember what grade he was in, but basically it was math class. They had a special needs student, and she asked a question, and Nolan got everyone to put their hands down because he wanted that student to answer. And so student answers the question, and she was like, Christine, the classroom, Nolan went crazy, and everyone else started going crazy, just celebrating that child, making them feel included. And that was the person he was. Like, he loved everyone. And I always told Nolan, like, you have to be careful when you have such a big heart like that. I love that God blessed you with that, but you have to be careful with that, because that it's not always returned, that type of love. But he was just genuinely a good person. Like, I always say, all the best parts of me are with him.
His mother called him the kindest soul she'd ever known.
And not the
His father said he was the funniest kid in the family, and that Nolan's siblings are still hurting deeply weeks later. They told a story from when he was a toddler, running into a room in nothing but his diaper, dancing, just to break the tension during an argument between his parents. That was Nolan, according to the people who knew him best. That's who this is actually about. Not a mystery, not a theory for strangers on the internet to solve. An 18-year-old who just graduated Ocean Springs High School, who was playing football as a wide receiver at Southwest Mississippi Community College, with an entire life still ahead of him. The district attorney has said the case remains active. The autopsy stays sealed until it's formally presented to a grand jury, with no public timeline for when that happens. Investigators haven't publicly ruled anything in or out. I don't know what happened to Nolan Wells on that island. Nobody making videos about this case actually knows, no matter how confident they sound. What I do know is that a real family is waiting on a real answer, and right now, every piece of actual, verified information matters more than another theory. The moment there's a real, confirmed update, an arrest, an unsealed autopsy, anything official, I will be covering it here. Subscribe so you don't miss it, and drop a comment with what you'd want investigators to look at next. I read every single one.